Good morning. Good morning, maybe. Hello?
I got a red light, but no sound.
I was going to say, it's turning red. Good morning. But can you hear it in here, though? Still not on in here. Is the master knob up? Yeah. Hold, please. Technical difficulties. Hello, hello, hello. Good morning. It's the big knob out there, isn't it? Someday we'll all be trained on it. And then we'll get a new one. Yeah, exactly. Good morning. Good morning. Yeah. This mic's way too loud. Oh, wait. Was that something? Nope. Good. There we go. All right. Thanks, Eric. You're earning your keep again today. All right. This is the May 14th meeting of the City of Findlay City Planning Commission. Never mind. I'm looking at the minutes. My apologies. June 11th, 2026. And we will be starting with roll call, which I'll do since Jacob's in a seat. Mayor Mern is here. Rob Merton.
Here.
Mr. Carrie Trombley.
Here.
Kyle Inbody.
Here.
And Mr. Klinger is not going to be joining us today. At this time, anyone who plans to speak for or against an item, if you can please stand and raise your right hand to be sworn in.
Do you affirm that all the testimony and evidence you're about to give in a case before this commission this day will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and will conform to the facts of the case and the rules of this commission? This you affirm under the pains and penalties of perjury. Please say I do.
You may be seated. Next, we have approval of the May 14th meeting minutes. Was there any amendments?
I'll make a motion to approve.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Hearing no statements of amendment. All in favor, please say aye for approval.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, nay. Minutes are approved. All right, we are going to begin with old item application for site plan review SP-08-2026, an application for conditional use CU-11-2026, filed by Sean Hoover to construct 4 storage buildings totaling 38,880 square feet at 2351 Keith Parkway. CPC staff comments.
So the request is located on the east side of Keith Parkway. The parcel is zoned I-1 light industrial. To the south, inside the city of Findlay, the area is zoned C2 general commercial. To the north, it's zoned I-1 light industrial. And to the southwest, it's zoned M2 multifamily high density. To the east in Marion Township, it is zoned B3 general commercial. It is not located within a 100-year floodplain, and the city of Findlay land use plan designated the parcel as regional commercial. Parcel history, the site is currently vacant. The parcel went through City Planning Commission in March 2026 to approve a rezoning request from C2 general commercial to I-1 light industrial. So, staff analysis, the applicant has submitted an updated site plan to address the concerns from last meeting. They have shrunk the building in the northwest corner to avoid needing to request a variance. It now measures 7,700 square feet instead of 8,400, like the adjacent building to the east there. Landscaping. The landscaping has been updated with 28 blue spruce along the west and south sides of the site. This will provide better screening for the site on the whole. Photometric sheet was provided. Staff would just reiterate a condition that lighting be fully shielded and directed away from adjacent properties. No fencing has been provided on site. The layout similar to the one that's shown from Tiffin, Ohio in the last meeting, which lacked fencing. With the site being owned by the same property owner as the adjacent parcel in Marion Township, staff would like a discussion on whether these sites need some sort of separation so that visitors do not go from one to the other freely. Again, with storage, self-storage facilities, staff would reiterate that there is an inherent concern regarding the potential for items or materials to be stored outside the enclosed units. Given the limited amount of remaining open space on site, staff would recommend a condition expressly prohibiting outdoor storage to minimize the likelihood of such activity occurring and to maintain an overall appearance and functionality of the site. So staff recommendation, our recommendation was approval of the application for for site plan review SP-08-2026 and application for conditional use CU-11-2026 filed by Sean Hoover to construct 4 storage buildings totaling 38,880 square feet at 2351 Keith Parkway with the following conditions. All lighting be fully shielded and directed away from adjacent properties, and no outdoor storage permitted on site.
Engineering,
No additional comments.
fire prevention.
No additional comments.
So the recommendation before the commission is staff recommends approval of the conditional use and site plan with the conditions of lighting being fully shielded and directed away from adjacent properties, no outdoor storage permitted on site, and obtain all required permits and call for fire inspection. Is the applicant or applicant representative here to speak on this item? Yes. If you could just come forward real quick. I just have a couple of minor questions. So I appreciate the updates. Can you just speak real briefly? At the last meeting, we did discuss having fencing potentially between the two properties just so that you didn't have folks going back and forth. Can you just touch base on kind of the decision to not have the fence there at this time? Yep, just push the button at the bottom. Yep.
So I'm a
And you don't have
fill-in.
to hold it, just click
Oh,
it.
sorry. So I'm a fill-in today. Sean's not available. I'm co-owner of the company, but he was handling this project. But we don't have any fencing. We have, I think we're up to 15 of these locations in Northwest Ohio, and none of them have fencing. So, I mean, I guess to relatively answer your question, none of these have fencing, and we don't see any issues or have any issues at any other facilities. And I don't foresee one here. We obviously have another location in Findlay already at Romick, so.
Yeah, and I think as long as you don't have the outdoor storage, I'm okay with not having the fencing around your storage facility. I think the larger concern, which is really, I guess, your risk to take, was folks going through your other property with equipment being outside and some of the landscaping items that you have.
And we'll have cameras and everything set up as far as that, and even Wi-Fi may be added at that point too. So.
Okay.
What about a gate or something? I understand not fencing the whole piece, but something to prevent traffic from going back and forth. The camera doesn't prevent traffic from going back and forth between the properties, which is the concern.
On the entrance portion, again,
No.
or you're talking on the
We're all
backside.
talking about cross-access here. So this whole property, this is open right now, and people can access this. Customers coming in can access this. We're saying, how are you preventing that from happening? That's the point of fencing or gate or something.
Most likely on that backside. I guess we haven't talked through it fully yet, but I mean, I guess looking at the layout to see the functionality of how we can gain access in and out, because we're going to have to access it from that side now due to parceling off the Flight House area. I mean, I wouldn't say it's out of the question. We could entertain it, but we haven't functionally thought through that. If it's a necessity, I guess we'll have to address it. But at this point, it was just an optional item that was going to kind of get focused on more when we got into, that area, I guess.
So I'd like to see something preventing traffic from going back and forth. If you want me just to tell you what you need, I can do that. Or if you'd like to propose something, I'd rather you guys propose something that works for you rather than us just dictate something up here.
Okay.
So,
Again, that's my opinion. You guys can have
well,
different opinions.
I was, before you mentioned that, and if we're okay without fencing, would it make sense to continue the landscaping that is running east and west up around that east side of the property north? So there is a distinction.
Yep.
And it actually separates.
But
Fences make sense certain places, and I'm okay if we can differentiate.
I think they're planning to store some of their equipment in the storage garages, though, so they wanted to be able to
They
have
want
access
access.
for their workers.
Most likely, there will be at minimum a swing gate that will be locked.
Yeah.
Most
I think that would
That's
be
fine. That's
minimally.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we have that at other facilities that we own.
Yep.
And that
Allows
way,
you guys access back and
Correct.
forth, but then it stops
Correct.
somebody with an RV just trying to drive through Flight House's
Correct.
backyard.
Yes.
That's
Yep.
exactly
Yep.
what we're trying to prevent.
Yep. I mean, that would be 100% doable. And I don't know why we wouldn't have that, honestly. So,
Awesome.
Okay.
yeah.
Was there anyone from the public that wanted to speak for or against this item? If so, just stand up and raise your hand, because when you sit over here, I can't see you very well. Okay. Any other questions or comments from the commission? Hearing none, I will motion to approve application for site plan review SP-08-2026 and application CU-11-2026 filed by Sean Hoover to construct 4 storage buildings totaling 38,880 square feet at 2351 Keith Parkway, with the conditions of all lighting shall be fully shielded and directed away from adjacent properties. No outdoor storage permitted on site. Obtain all required permits and fire inspection, and install a swing gate to prevent cross traffic.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, Eric?
I do have a question. With the parceling, I know, somebody causing that going. With your parceling off of Marion Township of the Flight House, do you have an entranceway back to that piece that we're accessing from Romick Parkway, or is that going to be the only way to access that piece of parcel?
At this time, that is the only way to access it at this time. Now, we are entertaining, if we don't sell Flight House, that we may do more with conglomerating that into, part of another company's existence there that we own. But for the moment, that I don't believe there's any easement back to that area.
Okay, I mean, that would be, it's out of our jurisdiction, but whether while a split happens, but that would be a suggestion to have access to the parcel, because that's not in the city. Now, if it was annexed in the city, I think that would create more of a flexibility and flow, because you would have frontage off of Romick connected to this parcel.
Yep.
So just something to think about
Okay.
going forward.
Okay.
Thanks, Eric. All right, hearing no other comments, Jacob, whenever you're ready.
Mayor Mirren.
Aye.
Yeah. Mr. Barton.
Aye.
Mr. Trombley.
Aye.
And Mr. Embody.
Aye.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, we'll turn the gain down a little bit. All right, we are going to move briefly to item 2 in our new items. This applicant has requested this item be tabled, and therefore I will motion to table application for site plan review SP-10-2026 and expansion of a non-conforming use NCU-01-2026 filed by Brown Auto to construct additional parking at 1226 West Sandusky Street.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Was there any discussion? Hearing none. Jacob, when you're ready.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Trombley.
Aye.
Mr. Embody.
Aye.
Mayor Mirren.
Aye. This item is tabled. All right, moving to item number 1 under new items, application for site plan review SP-09-2026, filed by Vision Development to construct a 222-unit apartment complex at 15,733 US 224. We will begin. Just as a reminder on how our meetings flow, you saw a little bit. This is a time primarily for City Planning Commission discussion. We will allow for public comment. I will do that after we work through most of our questions or comments. And then it is time for folks to bring up concerns or questions that they have on this. There's not a specific timeline. It's up to my discretion on how we manage that. So I will plan to kind of limit folks to make your key points if you have them and try to avoid repeating topics. But again, this is primarily for the developer and planning commission to make sure that all of the items related to code enforcement and engineering and the concerns that we've heard from the public are appropriately addressed. Okay. So with that, CPC staff comments.
General information. This request is located on the south side of US Route 224 at the south west corner of the intersection with Township Road 237. Parcel has recently undergone the annexation process and will be given an initial zoning of M2 multifamily. On the south side of the US Route 224 in Marion Township, it's zoned R1 single family. On the north side of 224 is a mix of C1 local commercial and O1 office institution. And it is not located within a 100-year floodplain. The parcel history, this site was previously Shady Grove Golf Course. Staff analysis, the applicant is requesting approval for a first phase of a development with a 222-unit apartment complex on the northern 20 acres of the subject property. The primary access to the development is proposed through US Route 224 with a secondary access point from Township Road 237. The site plan provides 388 parking spaces. The M2 district requires 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit plus an additional guest parking spot per 5 units, resulting in a total parking requirement of 489 parking spaces. The applicant has indicated that they intend to request a variance from the Board of Zoning Appeals to address the proposed parking deficit. With respect to the setbacks, the proposed development meets all applicable standards of the M2 district. The applicant has stated that a lot split will be completed to place the development on its own separate parcel. Despite the reduced site area, the submitted plans demonstrate compliance with the district's density requirement of 3,500 square feet per dwelling unit, requiring a minimum of 17.83 acres, and indicated that the required rear yard setback along the southern property line will still be maintained. The tallest structure identified on the site plan, Building H, is proposed at the height of 42 feet 3 inches, which is below the district max height of 50 feet. The proposed 222 dwelling units will be distributed among 18 apartment and townhome buildings. Additional site improvements include a clubhouse, a fitness building, and 3 detached garage buildings. The landscaping plan indicates compliance with the district's requirements for foundation plantings, parking lot landscaping, and required tree plantings. The proposed efficiency units do not meet the minimum dwelling unit size requirement of 500 square feet. The applicant again has indicated that they're going to request a variance with the BZA for those units. So our staff recommends approval of the application for site plan review SP-09-2026 filed by Vision Development to construct a 222 unit apartment complex at 15733 US Route 224 with the following conditions. Receive their variances for the minimum floor area for the efficiency units and the reduction in the parkings required.
Engineering.
So as Jake was saying, the development is proposing 2 new driveways, one onto 224, one to 237. They'll be eliminating the 7 drives, roughly, that was over on 237, into 1 full access on each of those roadways. They perform a traffic impact study for that area to do analysis on what is needed for those. On 224, it was identified with the trip generation that they have for that and the amount of traffic and how it's going to interact with the AM and PM peak flows. There's going to need to be an eastbound, I know I had westbound in there, I meant eastbound right turn lane into the development for that. Right now, 237, with the amount of traffic that is on 237 and the trip generation for peak flows, nothing is needed for 237. The queuing of the intersection is still functioning within a level service of B. Even in the future of 2037, when you kind of plan these out for traffic study, you always got to plan for future too. Still has a level service of a B. In peak flows in the AM, it's at a C, but that is still highly acceptable within engineering standards. So I do not have a concern with any of the traffic after the traffic impact study was evaluated. Water service, it is all private within the system. They're going to be running 1 line across 237, and then they're going to split it into a domestic and fire. That pretty much goes into a meter house. One of the comments I have, I mean, really all I would like to see is that main line from where we are on the main line on 237, bring that whole main line across the roadway and then put the valves on the west side of the road. So that way we don't have additional private valves or anything that's in the roadway. So we just have 1 line across, then we'll split it from there. That will be easy work. If you guys, we can work with final location where those gate valves, where we'd like to see them. If you want them closer to the meter house or something like that, we can work on final location. Just as long as we get them out of the roadway on that. I know there's been concerns in the past where it's been brought up about water pressure and all that kind of stuff. I have no concerns with that. We have a water model that shows that. In April 15th, roughly, in that time zone, we actually did some pressure testing out there. It had a static pressure of 50 PSI and residual of about 45. So residual is if everyone's kind of using the water through there, what's the PSI? And that was flowing at a rate of about 1,100 gallons per minute. So there's a lot of flow through there. We plugged this development into our water model through our master plan, and it did not show any negative effects. It's kind of just a small blimp in that for how much overall that is. It's really not that much on our water system. Sanitary side, again, private system. They're tying into the west side and then a small line over to the east side, but all that was developed for that whole area, so I have no concerns with the sanitary. On the stormwater, if you look at the grading table, they pretty much have either in low areas, they have catch basins that are catching that water to take it to the detention pond, but overall that site is flowing straight to that detention pond for that to capture, and that's where our 100-year storm per our standards and the water quality is being held within that. And then it's going to be metered out into that ditch that is existing, kind of flowing that direction now. So they'll have that pond is fit for that site. Really don't have too many concerns with anything. We'll work through the water line stuff, but just make sure we have permits prior to construction.
I'll ask my question after. Fire prevention?
We just want to make sure they get all the permits through Wood County, through the city, through the county health department, and then schedule any inspections during construction to make sure we're on track.
Thank you. So the recommendation for the commission is staff recommends approval for site plan review SP-09-2026 filed by Vision Development to construct a 222 unit apartment complex at 15,733 US 224 with the following condition: receive variances for the minimum floor area of the efficiency units and the reduction in parking required. I believe the applicant's here. If you want to come forward, introduce yourself, and then I think we have the slides you had requested to present. And if you can just make sure the microphone's turned on there at the bottom, push that in. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Mayor Murrin and members of the commission. I'm Scott Morgan with Vision Companies, and joining me today is my coworker Pete LaRose, along with 2 of our consultants that did really the heavy lifting with the submittal package that we presented to the group. First is Pod Design, our land planner and landscape architect, with Todd Foley, principal, and Ryan Young, project manager. And also EP Ferris and Associates, our civil engineering consultant, Justin Ray, project manager, Chad Buckley, director of private development, and Doug Bender, director of traffic engineering. On behalf of Vision Communities, on behalf of Vision Companies, we stand before you today as partners, committed to the continued success and thoughtful growth of the Findlay community. Our goal this morning is to present a detailed site plan that directly reflects the high standards of design, safety, and community integration that this commission upholds. As Vision's 32-year track record reflects, we are committed to collaborating with city leadership, staff, and neighbors. And we want to assure you that cooperation and open communication remain our top priorities throughout this process. We look forward to your feedback and stand prepared to answer any questions specific to this site plan review as we work together to bring this vision to life. We thank you for your consideration, and at this time, I'd like to introduce Todd Foley to present our proposed plan.
Good morning, members of the commission and staff. Appreciate the opportunity to be here before you. I'm going to do my best not to duplicate the information that's been provided by staff. I think a lot of good information they provided, but I think one of our big focuses we want to get across here is to really talk about the project, talk about the details, talk about the process, the evolution as to how we got to this point, and really give you insight to why we feel this is going to be a really high quality product and something the city is going to be proud of. So appreciate your willingness to let us go through this. Just a few things to highlight from an existing conditions perspective. I think everybody's very familiar with what's there today. I think the comment was made, one of the big parts that you're going to see with the phase one part of the project, which is that northern piece is what I would just describe as kind of a cleaning up of that 237 frontage, lots of access points, pavements, various buildings. The intention is that great. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Up in this general area, I think our intention is as this project if it's fortunate to move forward, that area you're going to see is going to be, cleaned up. The removal of those pavement, we're going to try to preserve as many of those trees as we can. We've purposely not pushed our development into that corner. We want that to be, kind of a more open, passive type of area. When we talk about 224 and that frontage, there are some existing trees. There's power lines. There's the fencing that's left over from the driving range and golf course. That is all going to be cleaned up and fencing removed, along the north here. And I'll get into some more details about how that's going to be laid out. Obviously, for us, the big asset to this site is this existing creek, the associated trees and woodlot that's there. We think it's not very typical to have a project or have a site have natural features like this. So as you can clearly see, we've designed our project in a manner that tries to preserve that and the residual acreage on the west side of that creek so that it can, be maintained as open space for the future. So moving on to the site plan itself. So when you visit a Vision Company's community, whether it's eventually this one or some of the other ones they have constructed, there is a very similar approach to how we design and how they operate their communities. And so for us and for them, the goal is always to have a really nice grand arrival experience. We look at how we scale our buildings, landscaping, signage, all those things that go into what the front door to the community looks like. And so our project has, through our analysis, we view 224 as that kind of primary front door to the community. Through the use of alternative building designs, and which I'll get into a little bit later here, different unit types, different architectural elements, we're able to reach a broader audience of prospective tenants, Some communities, their program is to do the same building over and over again. Vision has a program that incorporates a lot of different options and variety and interest, and that's a positive, we think. So, and overarching with all that is a commitment to high quality and high design, not only in the buildings on the outside, but the inside part, the unit layouts, the features that are available for the people that choose to live in these communities, the amenity spaces, the things that make this a community for the residents that live here is paramount for what they look to achieve. And they, they commit financially to having that high quality. And I'll show some slides and talk a little bit more about what those components are here as we move along. And then, as I mentioned, 224 to us, primary kind of frontage, 237 is secondary. That's not to say one is better than the other. It's more of a hierarchy of our impact and how the project's going to function, and us trying to be mindful of our surrounding properties on either side, and the fact that they are not all the same. We have different conditions on the east as we do the west and the south and the north. So as you arrive to the project, there'll be a deceleration lane that, as a result of the traffic study, will be traversing down a kind of a grand boulevard entry. Our project signage will be out here. These buildings along 224, I'll show some elevations. These are a 4-unit smaller townhouse building. They have a very residential quality to them, front porches, varying roof peaks, and those all help to kind of scale that entry so that we're not arriving and we have these massive buildings. We want to try to thoughtfully transition people from the public into the private part of the development. Ultimately, that boulevard leads you to our community clubhouse. That's kind of the central hub for the project. That's where operations is going to occur, leasing. It's also going to be a facility that's going to house amenities for the residents. I don't know that they've thoroughly vetted their program now, but if you went to one of their clubhouses now, you're going to see, kitchen area, a kind of a great room gathering space, pool tables, things like that. This particular one, a really nice feature that they're a new feature to their port. They're going to be having kind of an indoor coffee shop for their residents. It's a smaller space that residents can come in, get coffee. There'll be a little outdoor patio area, kind of a nice way to start your day if you're a resident there. And overall, our goal was to make sure that this 224 frontage has the character and that over time can evolve and continue to be sustainable, street trees and things like that. I'll talk a little bit more about landscaping in a moment. If we jump to the 237 frontage or access point over here, as was mentioned, we're going to be getting rid of all these different curb cuts, and there's a lot of telephone poles and things like that are up there to prevent access. That stuff all gets cleaned up. Our goal is really to try to return this to as close to a rural aesthetic as we can get through our landscaping, through the minimization of access and pavement and landscaping, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. So, we want to do our best to minimize the visual impact to our neighbors on the east side and to people that are traversing north and south, and that can be seen through the setbacks that we've worked with on the project itself. So overall, roughly about 20 acres for phase 1, 220 units. So we have the 4 townhouse buildings. There are 7 carriage garages. So there's 2 here, and 3 along the bottom. Those carriage garages have garage spaces on the lower level, and then there are 2 one-bedroom units available for rent above. Again, this is all about variety. Not everybody has the same goals, wants, and needs, and so those provide a little bit more seclusion from a rental perspective. And then the larger buildings that you see that we've done our best to try to bring as far inward as we can to minimize that impact to the perimeter. Those are the traditional 3-story walk-up garden apartment buildings where the majority of the units will reside. And then our central amenity area, there's a separate fitness building. There's some smaller, like shelter type buildings that are used to supplement the amenity space. We do have we have 3 just basic garage buildings as well. Those are spaces that are available for lease by tenants. So I just highlighted the setback comment a little bit. 40 feet on 224 and 237 is required. We're effectively beyond what those setbacks are required, even with our site layout a little bit more. We're approximately 55 feet back with our buildings along 224, exceeding what's required by code there. And then approximately 60 feet for these garage buildings and over about 145 feet for this larger building here. So, we know there are standard setbacks, but for us, as we looked at it, we really felt that, we have this space. Let's try to be thoughtful about our design, but also be mindful of those edges that we're creating and making sure that we're doing our best to fit into the context. You're probably wondering why there's football fields on this site plan and school buses, which are hard to see, but I think it's also important to help people understand the sense of scale of the west part of the site. Right now, from a technical perspective, we're required just 25 feet on that west property line. Our first carriage building that we have here is over 280 feet from the western property line. The closest 3-story building is 480 feet from that western property line. So the Findlay football field there, the Memorial Stadium, we're almost one and a half, let's just call it, football fields, or I think it's roughly about 14 school buses. So a really significant buffer, and I think it's going to allow for this open space to, at a minimum, be an incredible visual thing to maintain. Certainly these residents over here are accustomed to seeing that in that condition, and it's been a primary focus from the very beginning of planning efforts to try to maintain that. So the result of all those decisions and building placements and things that you see on the screen is a site that has over 70% of open space for phase 1 only. Now a lot of that resides over in this area, but when we talk about the central active amenity space, some of these passive areas, that's a huge number. And so I think that's the benefit of taking a site like this, being able to provide some housing for the city and still being mindful of those existing conditions there. So just to highlight the central amenity area a little bit, to give you a little flavor of what Vision looks to provide for their residents and their communities. This is a view. This is the clubhouse building here. So you're going to see, like I said, some of these covered kind of shelter areas. These provide opportunities for some soft seating, some casual interaction inside the pool area. Sometimes these things are available to lease for parties and things like that, but all designed to kind of give you a little taste of a resort feel, so to speak. And obviously the large pool is under 2,000 square feet, but outside of that pool area, you're going to see little fire pit areas, grill spaces, kind of a patio space that creates an indoor-outdoor relationship with the clubhouse, which is a really nice feature. In the distance here is that fitness building I was speaking about. You can see here there's those doors. Those are actually roll-up garage doors. This is kind of a state-of-the-art CrossFit style fitness building that has been one of the paramount features of all Vision communities. It's a great asset for the residents. They absolutely love it. This is a view from the east side of that building. We'll be providing a couple pickleball courts for the residents, some outdoor activity that sometimes it's volleyball, sometimes it's pickleball, but in the case of this, current trends, this is a hot kind of feature. And so we're also able to provide a little bit of a covered patio area there as well. So, hopefully that gives you a quick 30-second glimpse into the level of commitment and to quality features for the residents that choose to live here. So, as I've mentioned a couple times, I've got a few slides here. There's roughly 4 building types that you're going to see on this site. I'm going to walk you through here real quick. I draw your attention to the right side here. This is a color scheme that is envisioned for this project. Some of the different components with the different colors. So this is the townhouse building I was referring to. So this is the front elevation facing 224. Each level has their own private patios on them. That's an extremely unique feature that is not normally seen. Private access points for each unit. So there's 4 units within this. So just a really nice way to provide a little bit more space, and just it gives us a better presence as you come into the project. So, hardy board material for the siding, board and batten, horizontal lap siding. This is kind of the trim. These are kind of the colors that we're looking at. This then becomes the clubhouse that you're going to see as you come down that boulevarded entry. Again, we're trying to pull similar colors throughout all the buildings, but they're the kind of like ratio or proportions of the materials are going to vary a little bit. That's intentional. It's very purposeful so that we have cohesiveness, but we don't have repetitiveness. There's a little bit of a stone accent on the bottom here, but this is that rear elevation. The clubhouse also has those roll-up garage doors. Again, a really nice way to interact inside and out. This is the east elevation, is where that coffee shop I was describing to you will live. And then as we move, this is the 3-story walk-up garden-style buildings. So with this building, you're going to see the introduction of shake siding. Again, just another alternative to provide a more quality architectural element to it. And similar colors for the different siding elements. And I draw your attention, every unit has their own private balcony. Ground level units have their own patio space as well. So there's a great balance of a little more smaller, intimate private space outside, and then certainly the amenity space will afford you a more public interaction with that. This is that fitness building, again, a little clearer look. This would be the west elevation. This is the northern elevation. That's that little patio facing the pickleball courts. All these doors are operable. Restroom inside the building, and just a really nice feature to have for the residents, as opposed to it being in the clubhouse, a little smaller. In some cases, this is a very large space, provides a lot of options. And then this is that carriage garage that I was telling you about. So you enter the stairway coming up, 1 unit to the right, one to the right, one to the left. Each one of these units gets their own private garage. There's 4 other garages available for other residents in the community to potentially rent. So across the board, you're going to see, from a unit mix perspective, efficiency units, 1-bedroom units, 2-bedroom units, and 3-bedroom units. The majority of the units on the project are 1 and 2. The 3-bedroom units exist in the townhouse unit, and then the efficiencies are sprinkled in some of these 3-story buildings. That speaks to, again, a very purposeful approach to provide a variety of floor plans, a variety of access to people who have different needs and wants when they look at a place to live. That also equates to a range of rental rates, which again allows for a broader spectrum of people to be able to come to this community based upon their needs. So then, oops, sorry, I went too fast. So jumping to landscaping. So, we've talked a little bit about the site layout, the purposeful decision to try to take the more public uses for this project and internalize them. We have kind of created this courtyard space with the buildings. It's very intentional so that we're trying to be respectful and mindful of how this project operates in the confines of a larger environment. Another layer to that is how we treat it with landscaping. And we talked a little bit about a public frontage kind of perspective on 224. We have that being more open, more traditional streetscape with, large shade canopy trees, the entry feature with the boulevarded entry, all the foundation plantings, some screening elements to hide some of those drive aisles. But we're trying to create that kind of residentially scaled treatment that has good visibility and a good relationship with US 224. When we go to 237, that dynamic changes a little bit. There's a little bit of a different approach we need to look at from that perspective, and it was discussed at the council hearing. And we intend to provide mounding on this area here. We evergreen trees, shade trees. We're going to do our best to preserve as many of the existing trees as we can out there. They're a great asset. The goal with that is clearly we're trying to project. I mean, if we want to start using things like marketing and stuff like that, the projection is 224 for that kind of stuff. This 237 access is somewhat more functional. It's life safety with fire and things like that. And so we're doing our best with the mounding, the placement of some of those garages, the additional plantings there to minimize and to hopefully eliminate, in most cases, headlight screening and things like that, and really try to maintain a zone along the west side of 237 that hopefully mimics aspects of that rural character that you have as you move up and down that township road. All of our landscape commitments either meet or exceed the code requirements. I'm not going to go through them all in detail. They're representative in the plan, but foundation plantings, tree islands in the parking lot so we can get shade, canopy and things like that to be a part of the project. So we are going to be providing plantings along the southern part of the phase line. So phase 2 would be down here. Phase 1, we are, in addition to having those kind of carriage garages, which are kind of 2-story, there's a mixture of evergreen and shade trees as well here to try to get some canopy established right away. Who knows how phase 2 operates? We're not here to talk about that, but the idea that there is a time where there isn't anything proposed there, so we want to be mindful of what's required from a buffer perspective and prepared to provide that as well. So quickly on signage. So Vision also really tries to promote kind of a brand identity for their communities. And so the signage that you see up on the screen here in various forms, this is a project in the Hilliard area on the west side of downtown Columbus, but so it's a little bit of a different shape and size, but stone water table on the bottom. This sign here represents what would exist in that boulevard. On the US 224 frontage, it's a larger sign. It's still significantly under what's permitted by code. 200 square feet, I think, is what's permitted. We're right around 70 square feet for that. This is an aluminum sign cabinet, but it's detailed to look kind of like a rusty steel kind of look, very similar in a lot of projects they have. There's a little bit of a sense of scale there on the height. This is a 6-foot high person. So, large enough that we're identifying and providing the ability to know you're arriving, but not something that's out of scale and character for the project. When we move over to Township Road 237, that sign size shrinks, and that's intentional. We want to make sure we have identity there, but we're also not looking to provide something that's out of character and scale with what's around there. So lighting, I'm sure, is a concern by a lot of folks that are going to be moving around through here. This kind of halo effect is what we describe for the letters on the sign is what you're going to see for this type of sign. You're not going to see big spotlights washing a whole sign. It's done very tastefully, very appropriately from a scale perspective. And then that is our refuse center. So there's a compactor, recycling, and some bulk storage. Has an enclosure around it, a structured enclosure, but we've also provided landscaping to supplement that as well to help with that transition. So I intended to go through this in a little more detail. I think Jeremy helped me out a little bit with his description, so I'm not going to regurgitate too much. I think I just want to draw more of a visual awareness to where our retention pond is. There's, as it exists today, you probably wouldn't believe me, but there's about 15 feet of fall across this site. It's hard to see because it's a longer site, but it clearly drains to the west, and that's why we have this basin in place. There really is no stormwater controls that the Ohio EPA and the city requires, and will definitely have a recognizable effect on stormwater concerns as we look at a bigger picture here. We do have our engineers here if there's more technical-based questions. And then also over here on the right side is those green areas. They're more schematic, excuse me, they're more schematic in shape. We're going to finesse them a little bit more, make them a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, if you will. But that's where that mounding would occur. So as you can see, all the existing trees kind of up in this area hopefully remain, and then provide mounding and landscaping through here to kind of create that more kind of rural character and screen through that area. So just a couple quick highlights on the traffic study, and then if there are any more technical-based questions, I'll have Doug Bender with EP Ferris address those, as I am not the traffic engineer. But we know that the project's going to create more traffic. I mean, there's no traffic there now. We're bringing that, but our study, as was mentioned by Jeremy, an MOU with the city, we're agreed upon what the scope of that study was. The results of that, required us to do this deceleration lane going eastbound to mitigate impact to people as they move on 224. The proposed development is expected to generate about 85 cars in the morning and afternoon peak hours for the entire site. On Township Road 237, the current volume existing is around 270 vehicles in the morning. The proposed development is estimated to add 5 cars north of this driveway and about 9 cars south of that driveway, and that's the morning peak. And the afternoon peak, the Township Road 237 has a volume of about 325 cars per the study, and the proposed development will add about 5 cars to the north and about 8 to the south. So the traffic study indicates that the intersection of 224, 237 should still operate at a good level of service that the city is comfortable with, as Jeremy mentioned, and should continue to operate that way. Any delays that might be experienced in this area are really going to be delays that are going to be internal. They're going to be delays on our residents getting onto these streets, just from the traffic of them going in and out. So I know there was a discussion or some questions at the council hearing, and I think they were great questions to ask. I've got a series of quick exhibits here that talk about how does a school bus get through here to pick up school children? Can the fire department navigate through here appropriately? What about our refuse? This will be private refuse that'll operate this, so how does that trash truck come through here? So the color line that you see here demonstrates the path. We do a turning radius study the engineers do using technical specifications for those different types of products. So this shows what a school bus coming off 224, what the path could be. Here it is on 237, so as you can see, clearly no obstructions or any impediments to that having access. Same thing with a fire apparatus from 224 and 237. To add another layer to that, clearly our engineering won't get approved unless we maintain the access that the fire department requires, so we're very accustomed to working through that. And then lastly, this would represent kind of what a trash truck, how it can move through. So great question to ask. We appreciate it being asked. Hopefully that demonstrates that we've designed the site in a manner that can respond to that. So, so in conclusion, I think we've hopefully demonstrated the commitment to quality and detail for this project. Vision's extremely excited to bring what they provide to Northwest Ohio here. I know there was a condition in the staff report, totally agreeing upon meeting that condition, and we'll continue to work with city staff and any other agencies that we need to ensure that this is a quality project that everyone can be proud of. So we're here to answer questions. Got a full team. Thank you for the time. Sorry, hopefully that wasn't too long-winded, but I'll sit down.
It's all right. I'll allow it. So just appreciate the information and the detail, and you guys have really been responsive as we've been working through things, so I really appreciate that. Couple of just Christina thoughts and recommendations, and then we can get into the nitty-gritty engineering aspects. One, on the carriage houses on the southern border, have you guys considered actually putting the balconies on the south side rather than having those facing into the complex?
So the way that unit is actually configured on the interior, it's a great question. So maybe draw your attention to the side elevation. So the front elevation here, that is where the family, what I call family room, the more public parts of it are, and then the rear is where the kitchen, bathroom, all that kind of stuff are. And you can see, sorry, we don't have the rear.
It's all right. I have
elevation.
the floor plan. So
Yeah, so the windows on the back are these kind of higher, kind of like eyebrow type windows. So and this balcony is what we would call kind of a Joliet kind of balcony. It's not something you put a table and chairs out on. It's more just for airflow and ambiance and things like that. So the units are not designed to do that. And I think as we work towards the idea of a phase 2 coming online, I think our preference is that is facing north, internal to our project, and have that kind of screening. There'll be a condenser unit behind there for the AC and things like that. So,
okay. Then on the mounding, I know you're working with Jeremy and Matt on that. Are you thinking? Typically, we recommend like a 3 foot. Are you thinking higher? What kind of? Do you have a sense of?
So our preliminary analysis. I apologize. I should have provided that. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 to 6 feet height,
Okay.
we think we can accommodate. And why do I say 4 to 6? Well, we're not going to it's not going to be a box, right? We're going to have a transition zone from the edges. So we'll start off and it'll be in that kind of like 3 to 4 foot. But the bulk of that mound, we're going to try really hard to get it between that like 5 and 6 foot range. Putting landscaping on top of that, evergreen trees, shade trees, which we have. That's the beauty of our buildings being pushed back beyond the setbacks. We have more room to accommodate things like that. So, and there's some utilities on 237. There's a gas line and stuff like that we have to work around. But so yeah, it'll be more than maybe what you're expecting. So.
No, very good. Jeremy, can you talk just real quick? Obviously, we've heard a lot from citizens concerned about drainage. Obviously, we talked about how this site sheet flows to the southwest. Can you just talk a couple of things? One, how the watershed works to the east of 237. And then you can also just mention the difference in city drainage codes compared to Marion Township drainage codes. And you don't have to get into the specifics because I'm springing it on you, but just talk about the differences a little bit.
Right. So the subdivision to the east, what is it, Forest Lake? Yeah, Forest Lake subdivision. That's actually in a total different watershed than what this is. This watershed is pretty much heading north. I believe I can get a schematic, but it's a pretty big acreage of that. It's like 800 acres of that, and this is a small percentage of it. But all this is flowing south from that whole watershed. All that's flowing south through that ditch down to the Blanchard River. Eventually, everything wants to get down through there. Everything in Forest Lake is a totally different drainage watershed that is still all flowing to the Blanchard River and stuff like that, but that's a totally different route that it is taking because of how this grading is. Yes, right now everything is all grass, and it's a golf course, and it's kind of like a farm field. But when you get in situations where even farm fields or golf courses like this, if they're saturated or if they're frozen or any kind of situation where the water can't absorb quickly, and you get a 3-inch rain, like up in Fremont, their golf course just flooded because it was already saturated and it went quick. It all goes to the low spots. Well, so this is the same situation where in those big rains where there are 3 inches of rain in a couple hours, that's going to sheet flow right across there. With the way they got their grading right now, I got a pointer. They do have some low spots within their development of where they have catch basins and stuff, and they're capturing some of that water. So say we get a 3-inch rain in a couple hours, they're going to see some of that flooding within their site until their catch basin can capture that and come off. Now, of course, some of these outer rims and stuff like that, it could sheet flow, but how they have that grading, it is all pointing towards that detention pond. And that's the way we kind of always have everything designed, is you put your detention pond at your lowest point, so that way it can capture all that kind of stuff. Our detention standards are pretty high across the state or anywhere. We do a 100-year storm because of the amount of flooding that we can we can get within this area. So they have to obtain or hold back a 100-year storm in order for that to be slowly metered in a different storm rate, like a 5-year storm. They can't introduce water into the ditch faster than what it is right now, but they are holding all that water within that detention pond and then metering it out into that ditch. So in the grand scheme, you should see a positive effect on how their detention standard is. Now, I also give the caveat, and I'm sure the other engineers will say thing. You can't guarantee someone's never going to flood. You can't design for every single situation. You have a set of standards that you go to. We have set storms that we go with, the intensities that we have to design to. Now, not every single rain's the same. Not every, so they are designed to our standards. This, I feel confident in how they have all that drainage working. I'm not sure exactly what the townships is, but I know their detention standards are nowhere near what ours are. And that's why always in city planning, you always hear us try to push our detention standards to properties adjacent to city limits, because that's affecting us at the same time. So most of the time they're designed to like a 25-year storm. So we're designing to a 100-year storm, which 100 years, once every 100 years you should get. We've seen it, yes, a little bit more, but we have that detention standard for that. So having that metered into that ditch will help that ditch out. But there is still a lot of water coming that way. So all those farm fields and all that kind of stuff to the north of this site, clear up almost to 212, all that stuff is coming that way. So if they can meter their water into that ditch, that's going to give a little bit more clearance time for that water to get out of the way before they start introducing their water into it. And I mean, what that's going to help is you're not surcharging the system and backing it up or pushing more water down to Lakeview. But with that grading, like I said, this 237 kind of break point, all this watershed over in the Forest Lake area is heading in a different direction into a different watershed and ditch than what all this water is. So those are two different components within that.
Thank you. Yeah, and I woke up thinking about it this morning. So for the folks on the east side that have had drainage issues, I know I've talked to a couple of you over the years, obviously talking to the county engineer and township trustees. But I would also check, I have not looked at who is responsible for maintenance on the Forest Lake Pond, if it is the HOA, and if they are actually doing that. I would tell you that Hunters Creek, one of the reasons they flooded in 2007 was actually because their emergency outlet was not maintained properly and it was partially collapsed. So if you guys are having drainage issues, that's another thing to check into, is making sure that that pond is being maintained properly and you don't have debris clogging it. So I just was thinking of that this morning. Okay, I think those were my couple of notes. Other committee members, questions, comments?
Yeah, I've got some questions on the traffic study. So you've got your traffic engineer here. Maybe I could, when I look, yeah. When I look at a good traffic study, you look at capacity, safety, and impact to the surrounding communities. This one addresses capacity. I don't know if it addresses the safety and the impact as much, but I guess I want to start with a question on your assumptions on the land use. You're using a land use code 221, which is mid-rise, versus a 220, which would be low-rise. Help me understand why you picked that one and how it's applicable for this project.
Okay. First of all, Doug Bender with EP Ferris, and so appreciate the question.
Yeah.
The manual that we reference out of, and you
ITE,
mentioned land use code 221. So mid-rise is typically 3-story and higher. 220 is usually 1 or 2-story apartments, ranch style typically. And so we chose something that is a little more, categorizes this proposal better. So that's why we chose what we did.
You're using 12th edition?
Yes.
Okay, so 12th edition for 220 says 2 or 3 floors.
Correct.
Walk-up apartments or multiplex, stacked townhouses designed to match external appearances of townhouses. 221 was 3 to 10 stories with outside building entrance, lobby, elevator, set of hallways. It also assumes, and I'm not a traffic engineer, so you can tell me if I'm wrong, but it also assumes some degree of walkability in that, whereas the 220 wouldn't. And I feel that there's not going to be much walkability here to businesses, to schools, to communities. And the difference is about a 30% increase in traffic generation assumptions out of a 220 versus a 221. So I'm curious how you're saying 221 is applicable when 220 would not be applicable.
That's fair, and so the idea is that other things will continue to develop. There could be sidewalk extensions from the west that allow walkability, biking, that sort of thing.
But you're also not
224.
proposing any sidewalks.
That's correct.
Okay.
Within we are, yes.
Right, within, but not to attach to shopping, any commercial activities out west. You're not actually proposing it.
Not that I'm aware of at this time.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Do you think that 220 would be a better description of this property?
Could be, yeah. And so,
The challenge is, for me, I see 80 trips or 86 trips out of a 220 unit apartment during peak hours. That feels low based on what I think this is going to generate. And so, again, it's a 30% increase going from 221 to 220. That feels like it's going to be more applicable and give you a better assessment of what is actually happening or will happen once this is built, or if this is built.
and that's a fair comment. It's possible because of still going through site plan development
Sure.
that there will be an ability to provide walkability, but
Okay.
yeah, you could use 220. That's fair.
You've also got, help me understand this part, your level of service for US 224 and Township Road 237 on the no build versus the build is better in the build versus the no build. Help me understand how it gets
So-
better at the intersection of 224 and 237 after you build.
That can happen. There are times that does happen because of a slight, the software does allow you to optimize signal timing. And sometimes you add site traffic to movements that work fairly well compared to other movements that don't work as well.
Okay.
And as a result, it can show a slight reduction in level of service. I won't say slight reduction in delay.
And delay,
Which is
right.
improved level of service.
Right.
So we do have that happen at times. When you add traffic to movements that are working fairly well, you do show an improvement. It's an odd conundrum of how the software works.
So are you proposing any signal modifications to 224 and 237 that would allow for those improved optimization level of service?
Not so much improvements to the signal. Signal timing can be adjusted slightly.
That's what I mean.
So that would be,
Are
that's
you
a
proposing
possibility.
those?
Not at this time, however,
Okay.
it's possible.
And Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong, typically we don't let other people dictate the timing
Yeah,
of
so
our
we
system.
we evaluate those after the builds because the software system can say one thing compared to how traffic's actually going to go out there. So even though that's an ODOT signal, we maintain that,
Yep.
and ODOT kind of reimburses that for that. So we deal with all the timing on that. We do have cameras up in that section, so that is reading how traffic's actually going through there to help with the delay, because I mean, like he was saying, a delay is pretty much is what your level of service is going to be within that. So once the system gets built, it's one of those our traffic team evaluates, and if they have to change the timing one way or another, we'll do that. But normally, if we get something where it says, "Hey, you got to change it to this," we let the development happen, see how it functions, and then change it, try it out, and it's kind of one of those we see if that's actually how everyone's traveling through there.
Yeah, one thing I'll add, this intersection has a westbound left turn, a dedicated westbound left turn lane with a potential for a left turn phase. So it has a lot of things going for it. And adding a few cars to certain movements, I realize it made it show a little bit better, or the timing adjusted slightly because the software wanted to optimize that. And so we're not saying we're suddenly going to solve all the problems by adding site traffic. That's not what we're suggesting with the result of the study. We're just saying it can continue to operate at a very reasonable, good level of service that's acceptable, that's at the similar level as to what's out there in the no-build condition.
Did you look at the impacts to 237 as it goes down to 568? I don't believe that was in the study. But
It was not in the study. I will say, I know there's some thought that this is some cut-through route, and I can't speak for the local concerns and issues. It sounds like if it is the case, it's a bit of an existing situation. However, when I looked at the traffic count data,
Yeah.
I noticed that in the evening, there's a fairly substantial eastbound right turn movement. And to me, that makes sense because that's folks returning to the subdivisions after work.
Eastbound right turn movement, you're talking about 224.
Correct. To
Onto
237
Okay.
southbound. And so that makes sense. That's people returning from
Yep.
work to go home for the evening. In the morning, in light of hearing the concern about cut-through traffic, I looked, and the westbound left is actually fairly minor. It's only, I think it was 33 cars. So it's not a large movement if there is some cut-through. The other thing is I drove through this morning just to kind of get a feel for things. I watched the signal for about 10 minutes. I didn't see a heavy left or right turn. There was actually almost as much right turn traffic as there was left to go south.
And that's the intersection I'm asking about. One with 237 as it goes south to 568. There's a lot of people that come out of the neighborhoods, and this would add to that traffic, to go down to that stop sign, it's not light, on 568, and then head into town for work.
Fair enough, but we did not analyze that, if that's simply your question. My point is, I didn't see large volumes cutting through. This
Yeah,
will
I don't think
add,
it's
like we
cut through
said,
traffic.
8 and 9 cars
Yep.
per hour. And that's, to me, in light of what we were looking at with 270 vehicles in the morning, 325 in the afternoon, I think it was less than 5%. It was a pretty minor thing. And I know there's some desire to suggest maybe a lot of this traffic's going to go that way, but I see a lot of the jobs between the retail and the industrial and, fulfillment centers, those kind of jobs are to the west on 224. That's why our distribution, trying to be logical and use good engineering judgment, that's why most of that traffic was assigned into town that direction through the main drive. Again, this developer's done a nice job of trying to focus the entrance and the features of the site, push traffic to that direction. So.
And Carrie, I will mention, Jeremy and I have been talking about the 568, 237 intersection. Obviously, that's a little more complicated for us to do anything on because it does remain in the township. But just as we did with 237, we said, hey, here's some recommendations based off of what we're seeing to ODOT and to the township, and we were able to help get that light installed there. So we will continue to say, hey, here are some recommendations as we see the flow through there.
Carrie, we looked at prior to the traffic study of what that traffic looked like on 237. So why or why not do we tell them, hey, you got to look at 568? In 2016, there's about 2,900 vehicles daily average on 237. Since 2016, the amount of traffic has decreased by 6% on 237. From 2021, if you look at 2021's number, so after COVID and stuff, it's decreased 6%. That was about 2890, something like that. From 24 to 25, it went up slightly. I think 20 vehicles or something like that. But there was also construction on 568. We had the Greenway Trail. We had the bridges. And all these numbers are from ODOT. ODOT performs traffic studies on all that kind of stuff. So we wanted to see, okay, is there a large increase of traffic of 224 and 237 that we're seeing? Like each year, there's a 1% increase, 2% increase. And over the years, and if you kind of look from 2020 to now, 236, we improved 236. So now a lot more people are using 236. But 237 has went down in amount of traffic that they've seen since 2016. So if you're adding in, say, even if everyone went that direction and all within that peak flow, then you're still going to be in the same situation that it was 10 years ago. Within their traffic study, they had a growth factor within that to ensure that the future builds in 2037 can still handle what they're proposing. So with the growth factor that we had in there, and that was something we worked through with the ODOT standards of what is needed for that, because you can't just say, oh, everyone's 1%. You got to see how the previous pattern has been on that. So if you look at that, everything's been decreased by 6% in the over past 10 years, but we included a growth factor within that. So, okay, even if everything keeps growing, I think it was a 0.4%. Doesn't sound like a lot, but also if you look at it, the grand scheme of how things are going through there, a lot of traffic has changed in that area. So, if they sent everything all that direction, then we would say, yeah, we got to evaluate 568 as well. But I think with looking at our peak flows and how the traffic is flowing through there and the queuing, because that's your biggest thing. The roadways can handle those
Right.
as long as you don't have stacking or queuing within your intersections. Like they were saying earlier, if they create with their traffic, they're going to see stacking within their site. As long as we don't see a negative impact on the public roadways, if they stack within their site, that's kind of their problem. But as long as 237 can function and we still have a good level of service through that, and with the level of service that it is right now, it's at a very high level of service and we have some room within that, but that is just a timing going through there. So I don't think 568 is needing evaluated at this time on it, just because of how traffic is actually flowing through that whole area.
So I don't disagree with. First of all, I appreciate the commentary, and that's unusual that 237 has gone down over the past 10 years. But I mean, if you're a resident who lives off 237, you're seeing about 3,000-ish cars a day. It sounds like, even at the max development here, you're not going to see a meaningful increase to the traffic on 237. Is that a fair statement?
That's a fair statement, and I would add two other things. One, a two-lane road could handle up to about 12,000 cars a day. When you do like Township Road 236, you put a center-left turn lane in,
Yep.
it can handle more like 15 to 16,000 cars a day. 236 also kind of acts as a buffer to prevent people from cutting down 237 if you're coming out of town. That's a more logical street to come down. It's a shorter, directionally shorter to get down to 568. And it's a no-load street, so there's not a ton of driveways or anything
Right.
else. So that's good. That's a way to kind of keep this from becoming worse in the future if things start to develop further out, because that would be the logical way to go. If you're coming into town, again, things like signal timing upgrades on the signalized corridor. In the morning, most of that is retail. Most of those really don't get going till 10 o'clock in the morning, something like that. So in the morning, getting into town, it shouldn't be that desirable to cut down 237 if you're coming from further east. So there's some things, if it did, there's some things you can do. Just again, signal timing improvements. There's a lot of lane capacity on 224. It's a 5-lane road, dedicated left turn lanes, so traffic should move. If you were to come down this way, I noticed 568 is a 2-lane road. There's not a lot of left turn lanes. You might have to stop for somebody, whatever. So this should never become a very desirable cut-through route.
It's not a cut through. It's the traffic generating from the neighborhoods and the people that live there.
Right.
That's the
To me,
majority
it's
of
the
it.
traffic that's
Right.
south of here. Like you said, it's the subdivision traffic that you're seeing going up and down. 40 mile an hour, I'm sure people are traveling a little faster, but we're not trying to force all of our traffic down there. We're trying to feature it to come out. The signal does provide a way, if it's hard to get out in the morning or the evening, you can come over the driveway and go up and left turn out that way in a more safe manner if volumes do get busy to the point where it's hard to do. But again, that's in the direction you want it. It's not pushing it down past the neighborhoods.
Hey, Jeremy, my question on the land use 220 versus 221, I know you guys are the ones that's responsible for reviewing the traffic study. Do you have any concerns with the?
No,
Is it
we
221
kind of
versus
talked
220?
through that, and with the growth factors and stuff like that, I didn't really have concern with that. I know it's an increase within it, but how their site is functioning with that, I didn't have a concern too much with it.
Yeah, I started with the 9th edition, I think it was, and it used to be 220 was the only multifamily land use code. Now they've kind of broken it out by
Yeah.
sizing, and this felt like getting to 3-story, maybe we should look at it. I wasn't trying to pick something based on how much is that going to
Sure.
generate. I was trying to be appropriate for the proposed use here.
I still think 220 based on, not a traffic engineer again, just a regular one.
You've done some nice homework, though. I'm impressed. So.
220 feels more applicable
Sure.
because 2 to 3 stories townhouses versus 3 to 10 stories elevators. 3 to 10 stories doesn't feel like what this is going to be with elevators and with kind of in a more urban environment. This is a rural environment where everybody is going to be driving. There's no mass transit. There's no walkability. And
I can tell you this, having done this for 30 years, a 30% increase is not going to change the results of the traffic study, because the eastbound right turn lane is the one thing that kind of was spit out as a result here. I think we would still have the same results. I think You might have a few more cars at the signal, but again, most folks are turning out of our driveway, and if they have delay, it's on the apartment driveway.
It is on your drive, I agree with that, but I also don't want to create a condition where people are waiting for 20 or 30 seconds to get out and you've got a line of 10 cars. What's that going to do?
Understand.
That's going to encourage people to take more risks, and it's going to increase traffic accidents on the road. So I agree, it becomes your problem, but it ultimately becomes a problem for, us and the community
Yeah.
that we operate in.
Fair enough, and again, I would reiterate, there is a signal that if folks don't feel comfortable pulling out of there at certain times of the day, they can come and out the secondary drive and come up to the signal to get out the 224, so.
Okay, so we've hit on traffic, drainage, aesthetics. Yes, Carrie, stop talking. No, I'm just kidding. No, I just want to make sure I had my kind of key issues we needed to work through. Kyle, did you have any other specific questions or comments?
Yeah, I did have one comment that I've been kind of wrestling with, just kind of growing up in that area, always seeing how pedestrians interact in that area with the traffic. And this is probably a discussion with the commission if you would feel this is appropriate. But, installing sidewalks so disconnected from other sidewalks doesn't always make sense. Just when I was out here looking at it the other day, you see kids riding bicycles through the lanes, kind of swerving across, people crossing the street that are trying to walk into town. Granted, it's probably not as large as maybe in Columbus or a larger city, but there is pedestrians interacting with that traffic on 237. And even the minor increase, would it make sense to look at starting implementing sidewalks now that this is part of the city to try and put some of that pedestrian traffic in a more controlled environment so this extra traffic has less risk? Or is that unfair because there's no sidewalks?
So we talked about that beforehand. Like, do we put sidewalks in out there, the city limits? We enforce sidewalks, but it's going back to that situation where it's disconnected from everything. So one of the concerns I had is now, okay, you have people walking down 237, they get to a sidewalk, they walk the sidewalk all the way around, and now they get to 224. They're either going to, one, walk through grass or get on 224 to walk through there. Mm-hmm. Then now we're talking about a township area, or where either someone has to install that, or, township or city, or someone across their property on that. So then, okay, you presented sidewalks, you have that, but now you're either, if the grass is wet or no one wants to walk grass, now they're walking on 224. So it's one of those where you want to give them sidewalks because, ultimately I would like to see sidewalks in there, but I think it's so far disconnected from the next one that it could potentially push people back out into the roadway.
Would you guys be open to saying you'll put them in once connectivity is in? Because I agree, yeah. The sidewalks don't start till, I don't know, 1,000 feet down or something like that.
Right.
And some of it is township still.
Correct. Yeah.
Appreciate the concerns. Again, safety is what we try to implement on all our properties. I think at this stage of the game, understanding really what the full effect or what the full analysis really needs to be is something that we would continue to collaborate on. But at this point in time, that I think we need a little bit more study done.
I think how we've approached it in prior situations is we'll kind of cross that bridge or sidewalk when we get to it, because it makes more sense to do it kind of in larger sections, because I agree with Jeremy's concern of, I'm always a fan of sidewalks and getting people off of the street and creating those safe environments for people to be active, but I would be concerned about leading people to nowhere and then you have people trying to dart across 224 or something to get back into Birch Haven to be able to get on their path. So I just think it's one of those things we'll have to, I think, make sure, and Jeremy, I believe, has already addressed this, making sure that we have the area on the perimeter of the site to be able to add them in the future.
Right. What I was suggesting, if I wasn't clear, I apologize, of asking for your commitment to say, once connectivity comes in, once there is connecting sidewalk, that you would put it in. A commitment to do that in the future as part of the condition of approval. Not put them in now. If that's what
No,
the
I understand
commission
what you're saying. I'm just saying that we typically don't make that stipulation on developers just because it's such an unknown of, so I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying that's not something we typically would do. It typically is, hey, let's work with you, and they give us the right of way, or we work with them to put it in.
And I think we have demonstrated that there's opportunity with space, so there's a couple ways to analyze that. Number one, do we have the room to do something like that, which we know we can accommodate? I think the timing is the other thing, like how long are we talking about before that could happen? None of us can predict that internally to be able to connect. And so I think that would be the other concern is the appropriateness of that. Is it 10 years? Is it 20? Those are other factors. I'm not discrediting the question at all. I think it's, as you can see, there's a lot of focus on internal circulation with everything. But for us, I think, as we look at this for our residents, which is one part, I know you're looking globally too, as we all should. I think where are our residents walking to, and where are we at in relationship? If we were closer to, say, downtown or a corridor that's purely more walkable, I think the merit is there to really dive into that a little bit more. So, yeah, it's kind of a tricky thing for us. So, but.
Okay.
Other questions or comments from the commission? Any other items you guys wanted to hit on?
No, thank you for letting us be
Yeah.
thorough with all that.
Any
so.
other questions or comments from staff? Okay, I know we have a number of individuals from the public that are here. Was there any other items that you had questions on that we have not yet discussed? All right, yep, if you can come forward and please introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name's Steve Walburn. I live in the condos just west of the development. We have one way in and one way out. That's on 224. In addition to that, I don't know if you've taken this into account or not, there's a new mini mall going in, a strip mall, and the Target store. What are we gonna do? How are we going to get in and out of there on 224 when we need to get in and out?
Yep, so the traffic flow, that's one of the reasons that we make sure all new developments have 2 access points. That's our standard for the city.
Yeah.
I know that there is a southern access point off of your neighborhood that is platted but has never been developed.
Is that the one on Bent, I think it's Bent Tree or Bent Creek?
I believe so. It's kind of on the
It's
southeast
on the-
corner
yeah,
there
where
that
the
would then
houses
take
are,
you
yeah.
out to 237.
Yeah.
Yours will continue to be the same traffic flow for that area. We do look at that entire corridor, just as we had looked at with this neighborhood. The left turns across there. It will continue to be the same for yours, and not a significant change in service. So
Just one in and out?
yes, sir.
Is there a possibility that at some point in the future that, I think it's Bent Tree, that road will be continued to the west or to the south?
Well, you're getting into a little bit of a sticky situation there, sir, because you're still in the
know.
township. So if I
know.
try to make conversations about
understand.
that. So obviously, we're always open to ideas, and the roadway is platted. So if you were able to get with either your neighborhoods or the township and put in additional access there, the city would certainly be happy to work with you to do that.
Is that roadway platted to a 237?
Can you pull up the auditor site, please? Because I don't have that one memorized.
Okay, gotcha.
Also, guys, I know you were all very concerned that the spider was going to get on me earlier. Don't worry, I killed it. Oh yeah, do you have it pulled up on your phone?
I do.
It goes off to the.
Referencing that, like phase 2, when phase 2 happens, can there be connection from Bent Tree in as a secondary?
Is that part of the sale?
Phase 2?
No, that would not be part of the Shady Grove property. I don't think that additional road platting is on the Shady Grove property.
I think the owner of Shady Grove still owns that property south of the golf
Yeah,
course.
so it looks like Bent Tree connects, and there's platting that would take it east and then drop it down to Beechwood,
Yep,
and then take Beechwood out to 237.
yeah. So
That's how it's platted currently. Yep.
And that would take coordination with the township to do that?
Yes, sir.
Is there any conversation at this time about that?
That has not been brought up at all to me, but we could certainly talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Great question. Yep, if you can come forward and introduce yourself, please.
Hi, thank you. I am Heather Hunt. I've been listening and thank you for your explanations. You know, this has been really emotional for a lot of people, and for that, I apologize for being emotional about that. However, I still have a few questions.
Yeah.
We've heard the word disconnected. Well, this is disconnected from that, and this is disconnected from that. And I can't help but think some of this is still disconnected from 237 if there really wasn't a study done from your new existing down to 560.
Ma'am, if you can address
I'm
the
sorry.
commission,
I
because
am
we're the
sorry.
ones making the
I'm sorry.
decisions today.
I apologize.
No, it's okay.
If that study wasn't done, right now, if you drive the one way, if you go down 237 to 568, it's faster to get into town. Not everybody works at the industrial whatever that they were assuming people would work at, or work to go to the retail areas.
So-
people do cut that way, so why wasn't that looked at?
So if I may just, they gave us the traffic counts of what they anticipate coming out of their facility onto there. So we do know that. But what, it's not their responsibility to then look at, they can say, hey, I think they said, 9 cars in
Right.
the afternoon to the south. So we know, okay, 9 cars, that's not a significant change in level of service. So do I think that the 568, 237 intersection warrants looking at in general? Yes, but based off of the numbers they provided it was not significant enough alone to warrant that. So we get that information from ODOT, so it's still within their parameters. And I'm looking at Jeremy because he will tell me if I'm wrong, but it's still well within their parameters of level of service.
Okay. I guess I still don't feel like that really answered the question, because if it's faster, you're not going to go to the light, you're going to turn and go the other way. My other question was the grading. Okay, and thanks for that explanation that one goes one way or the other. His property is on would be in the second edition, and right now, when it rains hard, it floods in his property from the golf course.
Mm-hmm.
So, is there what does this do to help prevent more? That's kind of my question.
Yes.
So-
Of that question.
Oh, I was just going to say, so it actually will help. So I think a couple months ago when I put the letter into City Council, it showed how in different storm events, this will actually help hold more of the water on this site and then be metered out. So as Jeremy was explaining, right now, when you get a storm event, it just immediately flows to the creek or to Mr. Hunt's property, and then you get water hitting it faster because it's trying to get to the river. Right. In this situation, because of the phase 1 detention pond, and then subsequently, if the phase 2 moves forward, the phase 2 detention pond, the water will get into that area faster, either through their storm basins or through sheet flow. It will then be held there and then is metered out. So it helps control rather than, it's the same thing we have happening in flood mitigation in the community as a whole, the basin. So by being able to, that will also help because it will help keep some of that water on their property rather than to onto yours.
That was my next question, is what is that property line going to look like for him? Because right there's the picture. It's right there. Is there going to be some mounding and some things like that that is going to push everybody off of that a little bit to give him that buffer? Because that would help, and if you're changing the grade in your new area, but the old area is still whatever it is any of that water going to come off and go into the low second area that hasn't been?
So they can't do any grading to push their site water onto another private property. So they have to contain everything. There are transition pieces. It's not like you build a mound all the way around and there's transition, but the way they're grading is they cannot have a small section sheet flow to another private property. You just have a transition piece. All their site has to go pretty much into their storm.
So it can't come to the lower area that hasn't been graded yet.
Right. So the only way you can have more water come into a watershed is if you pump it from another. We're containing that on site so we can meter it out. Now you're still going to have open, open ground down here. You got, like I said, you got open farmland to the north and all that kind of stuff. If you get in a situation where it's saturated, the ground's saturated, can't take water, and you get a heavy rain, that all is going to go to the ditch. But what their pond is going to help is they're capturing their site, they're holding that, so that way you don't get that surcharge as well. I can't guarantee that that ditch is never going to surcharge because the amount of acreage that's coming down through there. But for their site, they're making sure we are holding it for a certain amount of time, 72 hours, and it's going to slowly meter out all that time. So if that ditch does surcharge, then all that water can pass and they can kind of slowly put theirs out.
Thank you.
And one thing, can I mention just something else on the drainage? One of the reasons I had Jeremy talk about the difference in the township drainage regulations versus city drainage regulations is one, our drainage regulations after the 2007 flood, we bumped them up even more, so they're way more strict. In the townships, they actually don't have drainage regulations unless you are making a subdivision. And they have not changed their subdivision drainage regulations, when most of this was built out, they were not as strict. And so that's why, some of these properties tend to have water issues because there was no requirements on drainage management when they were built. And so that's one of the ways when people contact me and are frustrated about things that we explain that the drainage regulations of the city actually benefit the neighboring properties. So that's, I just wanted you to be aware.
So one last question. Did anybody look at the mailbox situation for crossing the road?
Yes, Rob actually talked to the postmaster and we have already requested that they go try to get some of them relocated. So
Because that is a concern, and I love you. I want to keep you around a while, but you've seen him get up out of a chair.
Yep.
If somebody's barreling down the road or not paying attention or late for work or whatever, or any of his neighbors, I don't want someone to get hurt because I still think more people are going to go south down 237. It's it can possibly increase that traffic flow. So
yeah, and I would honestly, I'm gonna, now that the annexation has been approved by council, once that 30-day wait period is up, I do think also this might be a good opportunity to change the speed limit on that road. I know some people would not like it, but it probably does warrant being a slightly lower speed limit just because we know people always go faster than the speed limit anyway. So if we want them to go a specific speed, it might warrant modifying that a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Nope, good questions. So anyone else I make lots of friends changing speed limits, but it's an easy thing to do to change people's behavior.
Can you put up the site map? Since I had some questions concerning that. My name's Wally Figger. The first part is, I guess, the mayor, 3 or 4 city council meetings ago, toted walking park. That was gonna be part of this. I guess I'm missing it. Where is the walking park?
Yeah, so this was just a proposal from Vision to say the area west of the creek could be developed as a park, either transferred to the city or maintained just for them. So that's just a concept at this point in time. We have not gone through the details of that because obviously they still don't have approval to move forward with their project, but it would be in the area west of the detention ponds.
So if it's approved, it's gonna be done, or?
That will be up to council if they decide to accept it, or within them on their private properties to determine that.
So if nothing's gonna be done, say nothing's done on the east side there of the creek.
It would be.
Who's maintaining that? Because it's a flood zone area. I mean, for Brookstone, you can ask anybody there. It's a flood zone area. If it's not cut and maintained, you're talking, it's gonna get overrun, bug infested.
Yep, so once the property is annexed into the city of Findlay, they have to follow our zoning code related to our high grass ordinance and or establish a wooded lot plan. So they would be able to say, as part of their private property, they are responsible for maintaining it if the city does not take it over. And then they would either have to mow it so that it is maintained no higher than 6 inches, or give us a maintenance plan to say, we're gonna plant native plants, trees, etc., and here's how we will maintain it to make sure you don't get bugs and infestation.
Okay, second thing, and I don't like pointers, so I'll use a pen up here. The lot of the people here that are speaking, they belong here and are retired. So it's kind of,
If you can
No.
get back over there, because we do need you on the record.
it's kind of, I want to say, seeing how many cars go to 237 and 224 in the morning really doesn't tell the full story.
Get behind the microphone, so I can have you on the record, please.
Really doesn't tell the full story because those people are not going to work. Now, once this is built, as I'd said at the last city council meeting, it's about 9.5 minutes to go down 237 and 568 to get downtown. The other way across 224 is a little over 16 minutes. That's 2 days a year that you're saving by going down 237. I think you're going to find out that all of those, the middle area, all of those townhouses are going to go down to 237 if they have to get to work downtown. Like, for instance, right here, really the traffic on 568 right now is Lakeview, anyone coming downtown. I don't know, does anyone here live in Lakeview? Which way, do you go down 224 to 568 to get to work? 236. And then,
I go down 236.
to 568.
Yes.
So you take the 568 way, which I think you're going to find a lot of those people going down 237 to right out of that exit to get to 568. So it's kind of a misnomer to me that only 8 cars are going to do that. I guess my other question is, on the study, it said 85 cars were going to be at peak hours, 83 at night, 85 during the morning. There are 220 apartments there. How are these other 135 apartments getting to work?
So,
It's a
good.
question.
Nope, I'm answering your question.
Okay.
So when they talk about peak hours coming out, they're saying the maximum amount in a single hour is typically this hour, and we expect this many cars. That means other people are going out through the other hours, right? This morning,
Correct.
my husband left at 6:30, I left at 7:30. So those are distributed, our 2 cars against us across 2 different hours. So they're gonna leave the other hours, yes. And I agree, I live right off of 236 as well. So I'm very familiar. Yeah, I'm sure that there are going to be other people taking 237. But when we're looking at the data, what we're saying is, even with the increased traffic on 237, the level of service on the roadways and the amount of traffic those roadways are built to handle is still appropriate. So I'm not, yeah, people aren't just teleporting from place to place.
Well,
We
I mean,
understand
that's
that,
the
but-
way, though, it's kind of presented in that study, that there's only going to be 85 cars, and somehow 135 other people, and may not be 7 to 8, it may be 7 to 9, but during those peak hours, to me, you're going to have more than 85 cars, and I don't think that's reflected in how the study was presented.
Appreciate the feedback. It is a convoluted way of looking at engineering data.
But that's also making the assumption that everybody that lives here is going to work downtown. What if they work off a Wellness Way? What if they work at Whirlpool or Ball or, Birchhaven? What if they work at in Tiffin? I mean, there's a lot of flow patterns.
Correct.
To your point, and the point was made, that if they work downtown, the easiest path is probably down 568, but the implication is everyone's going to work downtown, and that's not the case.
I agree with you. But on the other side, there's condos going up on 243 and 224. Were those part of this study, the traffic study?
They were not a part of their specific traffic study, but we do have ODOT numbers that, again, the roadways are able to handle much more capacity.
Agreed, but their study would be changed if all of a sudden 400 more cars during peak hours were going down 224. That's my point.
No, not their study, because their study is looking at their property.
Their study was completed before anything was known about that condo association. So if that condo association is causing an impact on another roadway, that is not Vision's responsibility to fix what another condo association is performing. So before that was even known, any trip generation or anything was known with that. Now, if that was there before, yes, they would have had to factor that in there. Their study, this is not an overnight study. They have to go out there for multiple weeks and take traffic study or traffic readings, because you got to find your peak hour factor. You got to find when is the system stressed in the AM and when is it stressed in the PM. So they were doing traffic counts months ago on this because we've talked about their traffic study. So any new development that has came to council since Vision has been here, we can't capture that because none of that was known. But they're going to be building, and those are a different effect. Like I said, if that company is going to be affecting 237 because of their condo association, then they have to. If they're wanting to come out on 224, they're going to have to do a traffic study or a traffic impact study as well, because that's kind of what ODOT is requiring on that. So no, it's not captured, but that's also not their responsibility to be fixing because of someone else's. With the amount of traffic that is coming out of Vision within this area right now, I think even if everyone is going down to 568, I mean, you can do a study and you know, to kind of finalize that, but there's really, in the grand scheme, if you look at the AM and the PM peak factors, when you have to design to, because that's your most stress. If everyone is going down to 568, I still don't think there's enough traffic on that area to change anything. You're not going to see a traffic signal go down at 237 and 568. If anything, there would be a small turn lane going to the right, but they would have to see which way is traffic turn. Is everyone turning right to go downtown? Is everyone turning left to head back to Cary type thing? I would not see anything within there with the amount of traffic that, even if both phases of this to justify a center turn lane like 236 is. 236 has almost 8,000 vehicles a day on that, and you got two major subdivisions that are coming into that. What we've seen on 236 is you have a lot of rear end accidents and stuff like that. So you got to look at their accident. What type of accidents are there? Whatever is that causing? Well, that's because of the turning motions into the areas. Like I said, that's 8,000 vehicles a day going down through there. Then, you know, there's another 2,000 vehicles coming out of the Fox Run and Lakeview area that are coming into that. So a lot of that is factored in on when do you go to a 3-lane, 2-lane, 4-lane, and all that kind of stuff. With the amount of traffic that they're proposing down through this, I would not even see within that anything happening on 237. There wouldn't be any kind of widening. At worst, down at 568, if the study's shown and it was a large increase, an overall big increase across there, it would just be a simple turn lane. But it still would not justify a traffic signal within that area.
Jeremy, so 236 is about 8,000 cars per day?
That's the average day. I think it was like 7,800 or something like that.
What's 237?
Last year's number was 2,715. And the traffic signal was installed in 2024, I believe, 23, 24. And ODOT put that up pretty much because they knew they were going to use 237 as a detour route for the bridge rehab. So they put the signal up for that type of work down through there. So those numbers I gave you in 2016 of the 2,900 vehicles a day, that was before the traffic signal. 2021 of 2,800 or almost 2,900 again, that was before the traffic signal. So it was functioning with more traffic going down through there. 224 was functioning the same. It's not like we've seen a huge increase or decrease within that. So I believe with the signal now being there and stuff, traffic can be maintained all on the queuing on how that is, on how your timing is. The amount of traffic that goes down 237, and you can, you know, like what I said before, you could put 8,000 vehicles down through there as long as you don't have queuing at your intersections where you're causing stacking. Roadways are made to be traveled on. You want free flow traffic as much as possible so that way you don't have stacking. So the problems is when you do a traffic study is figure out where you're going to have stacking, where you're going to have queuing, so that way you don't have a level service where people are waiting 2 minutes to get out of there type thing. So that's how traffic studies are, and that's why we only look at peak factors, because you're right, people go throughout the random day on, you know, 9 to 10 could be a heavy area for some people, but within the peak hour of what 237 is seeing is between 1 hour in the AM and 1 hour in the PM. That's how you got to design stuff, because every single hour is very tough to design for.
I agree with you, but to me, a study that shows 5 cars extra going down 237, there's a flaw in that study.
Well, even if you push 40% of them that way, now you're only at the peak hours, you're at, roughly 30, 40 vehicles that are going that way. That's still, in the grand scheme of what that roadway is, it's not that much. I know it's 220
It is in
units.
the grand scheme to these people.
I get it, but and also that's a public roadway meant to be traveled on for vehicles to go down through there. I get people are moving in and out of there. I mean, everyone lives on a roadway. Everyone has a curb cut onto the road. But with the amount of traffic that's going that way, even if all 85 vehicles went that way, that's not that much through within those peak hours. Now, how you go in and out throughout the day, yes, it's going to change. But roadways are designed for free flow to get them to those intersections and get them through there.
Okay. My other question is on the busing and students. Have you talked to Van Buren as to where the buses are going to pick kids up once this is done?
So bus routes are not determined until actual student enrollment occurs, and they say that they need, because obviously you have different, if you have 10 high school students versus 5 elementary and 5 middle school, the routes are going to be different. So yes, Vision has been in contact, and I have spoken as well with the superintendent, and they've provided some feedback on what they typically see in their developments. But no, there's not specific routes. All they have to determine is that there are safe locations within the development for pickup and drop off.
I guess one of my concerns is when students are going to be picked up by buses, number one, if truly the buses can make those turns, that's fine. I mean, that's with, 2 parking spots, one on either side of the.
Yep, when they run their routes, it has to accommodate for all parking spots being full.
But my other concern is that at that point in time that the buses are picking them up, everyone's going to work. So everyone's pulling out of those parking spots along with kids trying to walk to the bus.
I think people learn pretty quickly when bus pickup
When
and
one
drop
gets
off are.
hit, yes, they'll learn.
No, sir. Let's
not
not
fair.
let's not go to the negative right away.
There's-
The reality is, if I know that I typically leave and I want to be at work at 8 a.m. and I leave at 7:45 or whatever time, but bus pickups at 7:50, I learn pretty quick I either need to get out 5 minutes earlier or I'm going to be delayed by 10 minutes.
There's plenty of other apartment complexes in town that don't
Just-
have an issue.
People are
with
way
bus
more
riding.
disrupted coming down Sandusky Street by a bus pickup than they will be within this development. I grew up on Brookside, and we blocked traffic a lot of days.
Okay, well, thank you.
Well, and just one note, from this view, this looks like a simple yellow line.
No, it's
This is a model with the length of a school bus and very precise turning radiuses and everything. It's not just the bus goes this way. If you zoom in, it's very critical of the length of the bus, how sharp the bus can turn, and can they make these.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yep.
Other questions or comments? Yep, Ms. Hutton?
I have neuropathy, guys. I haven't been drinking. I say that every time I come up here, and it's the truth. Thank you, Patrick. Between Heather and Wally, everything was covered on my sheet. So that makes it easy for me. But I do want it, my husband had sent the council members and the developers. There is another piece of property that my husband's boss would be willing to offer. It's on the north side of Findlay, and it would be totally unopposed. I don't know what you thought when you saw that. Hopefully all of you read it. My husband wanted for me to mention that because this is really hard to swallow. I live on 237, been there 22 years. I've got neighbors packing up and leaving because you're coming in.
Ms. Hutton, today's meeting is for you to discuss any concerns with the City Planning Commission. So if you can direct your questions towards us, we'd be happy to answer them.
So my question again would be with the bus, should I go out there? Can I try to help the children get on the bus safely? I want to be a good neighbor. I really do, if this comes together. And again, the traffic is just, it's, we're not in agreement, and so that's evident, and I accept that. And I did invite the council to come live at my house for a week. I'll do the same to the developers. When those 18-wheelers come down, when your emergency vehicles come down, we need to consider everything, not just the individual drivers, but safety is going to be a big issue here. And if I can try to help the residents of these apartments to be safe and good neighbors, and I'll be the best neighbor to them as I can.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and it's always good to see you. So as we just talked about with the school pickup and drop off, you're not going to need to do anything because it will be inside there, and that's that neighborhood's responsibility and those parents' responsibilities to make sure they're taking care of the kiddos. As for the traffic, again, you know, I understand that change is hard and that bringing something in like this is going to change the neighborhood. I think the big thing to remember is that this property could be a commercial development. It could have been, and I know some folks said, oh, I'd rather have it be a Menards or a Walmart or something. I guarantee you would not rather have that, because if you're concerned about truck traffic, when you're having all-day deliveries and trash and no mounding and no landscaping and a big old parking lot, that is a much less desirable to happen in this area than what this development is going to be. So I know it's going to be a change, but hopefully long-term, it actually becomes a nice part of the neighborhood. And we take all of these issues very seriously. And when development like this occurs, it's not, hey, we approved it, now we move on with life. We continue to follow up and patrol to make sure they're holding up their end of the bargain and developing it to the standards that we have set, and that they are not causing problems for the surrounding neighborhoods. So I appreciate you sharing your concerns, and I think we've gotten to a really good place as we've worked through this development. You know, as you heard, right, there's going to be pretty significant mounding and landscaping. So your view, yeah, it's not going to be the golf course anymore, but it is going to be a really nice natural landscape. And by the way, one thing we didn't talk about is actually some of the natural effects that happen when you have tree-lined roadways and mounding like this. Visually, it actually causes people to see the road as narrower and naturally slow down their traffic. And so when you are on other roadways in town, when you see wide open country roads and there's no landscaping, visually people go faster than they should be. So having the development along here with this landscaping should actually hopefully slow traffic coming past your house.
I hope so. So my last comment, if the tables were turned, none of you would want this.
Thank you for your
Thank
feedback.
you.
Anybody else here that wanted to speak for or against this item? Alrighty, hearing none, I will motion to approve application for site plan -09-2026 filed by Vision Development to construct a 222 unit apartment complex at 15,733 US 224 with the following conditions. Receive their variances for minimum floor area of the efficiency units and the reduction in parking. I think that's actually it. I had other notes that I thought were conditions, but I don't think they are. Am I forgetting anything? All right. I guess I will just document the mounding, which I know they are working on and has been discussed. I just didn't have it in front of me. And then add appropriate mounding as worked through with staff. Yes.
I do have one other.
Okay, yep, if you can come, well, here, make a second, so that we can have further discussion
I'll second that motion.
or something. Okay, discussion.
Assuming the variances do not go through, what happens?
Then they would have to just modify their site plan on those components.
Would the site plan have to then be approved again?
No, not necessarily, so.
Unless there was significant change.
So unless there's a significant change, if they just remove those buildings, unless they're adding significant features,
Correct, unless there's, well, first I'll speak to the variance real quick. because I work closely, Matt Credonier, Director of Regional Planning, one of my jobs is helping to keep the code up to date. We have essentially consistently recognized that we are on the very high end of what we require for apartments. And I'm of the opinion, and Vision Development knows better what they need for parking than I do. You know, this is a similar development that has been repeated many times across the state of Ohio. They're marketing towards young professionals, et cetera, et cetera. They know how many parking spots they need. Just like Walmart knows better how many parking spots they need than I do. So this type of variance for apartments has been granted probably 7 or 8 different times for different apartment complexes within the city of Findlay. If the variance fails for parking, and if the parking lot is expanded by more than 10%, they would have to come back. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens tonight at 6 o'clock.
So what about the apartments if that variance isn't approved?
If they can make the change to meet the square footage without increasing the footprint of the buildings by 10%, then they would not have to come back.
So there's basically a 10% rule.
Yeah.
More or less.
It's 10 or 20%.
Okay.
But if it's just internal changes to a building, we're not
Okay.
really focused on the internal of how the buildings work. It's more form and function overall.
If the building goes from 5,000 square feet to 8,000 square feet, you're concerned. If it goes to 5,200, that's within that 10% variance type. I mean, that
Correct.
Generally that type
yes.
of thing.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I was just curious.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good question. All right, we have a motion and a second. Hearing no other discussion, Jacob,
Well,
whenever.
hold on, I've got one other comment
Yeah.
I want to make. So on the traffic study, I really appreciate the discussion on the traffic study. I feel that the land use designation used takes the less conservative approach for traffic generated from this site. That is a big concern for me, and I think that puts into question the accuracy of this traffic study. So with that land use, 221, which is 30% less than 220, I can't support the development. I think the development looks really nice. I think it's going to do a lot of good things, but before I would vote yes, I would want to see the traffic study updated.
Jeremy, any questions or comments on that?
No, I mean, it's his vote. I don't see the increase even on that doing anything to 237. I mean, over in how much traffic is going down through there, you know, is you got to look at overall flow through there. But I mean, that's your vote.
Thank you. All right. Did you have something, Kyle?
I was just going to ask, procedurally, maybe in the interest of timeframes, would there be a number that you would want to see if there was a condition on another traffic study that did not exceed a threshold?
I would like to see them use the what I believe is the correct land use, the 220. Which
Yeah, I meant, so if there was a traffic study performed with land use 220, if it affects it by less than 30%, I think that's the number that he had used, make it a condition to prevent it from coming back?
Honestly, it's hard to say exactly what would do. You'd have to see what the results of the traffic study are and evaluate them from there. So I don't think there's a condition I can say,
So-
hey, do this and then everybody's good. It's part of our review process. I think that would be a more accurate assessment of what the traffic situation is going to be.
But
so-
I guess Kyle, from that, I guess from your question of that, even if the numbers go up, I mean, all the traffic study is going to recommend what improvements need to be done at the intersection or, you know, or 224. Because, like, if you push, say, 60% or 40% of the traffic over to 237, now that turn lane may not warrant. So, you know, it could be something like that. If you change something like that, what it'd be doing is if you increase in that, does that increase, I guess what Carrie is asking is, does that increase change any kind of recommendations
Bingo.
on 237
Yep.
intersection?
Yep. Throughout the
The
whole route,
roadway.
right? You're going to go from 84 to 110 vehicles during peak hour. how does that change it? It's hard to say.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it does. I don't know. And
Sorry.
that's the part.
I didn't mean to
No, you're
interrupt you, I'm sorry. Can you clarify, though, if this goes through and it's built, the cadence of ODOT doing traffic studies, and they come with the changes of traffic patterns and flows and bring recommendations as things evolve?
So they do traffic counts every single year on 237, 224. Like major thoroughfares, they do all traffic counts yearly on. So you can see how those interact. This is phase 1 of phase 2. If they do phase 2, they're going to have to do traffic study on top with that as well. This is only for the phase 1. So
I guess my point was, if ODOT comes along and does the traffic counts next year, or when this is built, they could come with recommendations based on the patterns of traffic around this and through this, correct?
right, which it would most likely just be a signal timing exercise.
Okay.
I have one last piece with that. This is probably a Rob Pfeiffer question. So this is not conditional use. This is site plan review. Never mind. I take that back.
I was going to say, Carrie, we can certainly just add, update and provide to the city engineer the traffic study numbers and, if needed, modify, then it could come back. But I think the reality is if there are additional modifications, they're not going to be on-site modifications. They would be modifications that the city would need or the township would need to look at.
Yeah.
Yeah, so. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Jacob, whenever you're ready.
Mr. Martin,
Aye.
Mr. Trombley,
No.
Mr. Embody,
Aye.
Mayor Mirren.
Aye. Alrighty, very good. I see no other items on our agenda for today, so the meeting of the City of Findlay Planning Commission is adjourned.
There was 3 things we reviewed.